Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people.
Which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara Riska, life coach, wife, and the mother of 4 incredible and unique kids. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I completely lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and grace that once felt so completely lacking. I started the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves up against what feels impossible. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle the dreams that you hold impossible now. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you're a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello, and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I am Kara, the host, and it is my privilege to hang out with you guys every week. And even though clearly we're not actually hanging out, I feel so connected to this community when I hit the record button, and especially when I'm preparing episodes. The episode we have today is from yet another beautiful, amazing, heroic warrior mom, Christina. And she is the mom of 2 girls. Her youngest daughter was recently diagnosed with a genetic disorder. And she shares with us candidly and openly about the benefits she's gotten from getting certain supports with her mental health. And just it's a really great sit down conversation that feels like just hanging out with a friend at coffee. And I always learn something from these episodes, and I know you will too. But before we get into the episode, I came up with this fun and a little bit crazy idea. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment, but I know it's going to be amazing. I'm calling it a Zoom coaching call. Really, it's actually a Zoom group coaching call. And many of you, my guess is, have never experienced coaching one-on-one or in any group setting. And I thought, well, we must put a stop to that. And so I thought I'd open up an opportunity to come free of charge to gather, to actually be in a group. And I know it's Zoom and I know we're all really tired of that, but I promise this is going to be different and you'll be glad you came. And where I would actually be able to be face to face with you guys. And then for anybody that was willing to step up, would actually be coached in the group among our peers. And I have to tell you something, that when you are coached, of course it's magic, but when you watch someone be coached, it's a little bit of a different experience, but equally amazing. And so I thought, why not open up this opportunity for you guys? I want to see you guys face to face. And so I have set a date and I have opened up this opportunity. We're going to be doing this February 10th at 7 p.m. I do realize this leaves out most of my people on the East Coast. So if you are on the East Coast and you're like, Kara, that's not cool, just reach out to me. I will schedule one that works for East Coasters. And I just am really excited to see how this goes. I do want to keep the group small so that it's kind of an intimate setting. I think that's the benefit of having a really small audience right now, is that we're a tight-knit group. We are growing. And so, yes, please continue to share this with everybody. The intention is not to stay small, in the sense that I want everybody to have the benefit of this community. But for this purpose, I will keep that group small. So invite a friend, but not two. Just kidding. Without further ado, I will welcome Christina to the show. Let's get started. Christina, good day and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Well, why don't we have our guests get a little bit acquainted with you? Why don't you tell us about how you identify and became a special needs mom?
So I have 2 kids, and my oldest daughter, Vivian, is 6. My youngest, Eleanor, she just turned 2 last month. And I became an unexpected special needs parent. It was probably 2019. Yeah. That's when I noticed Eleanor started having delays, and everything just kind of snowballed from there. And next thing I knew, we were seeing genetics, and we had physical therapy and occupational therapy, and she's wearing SMOs and AFOs, and we're talking about walkers and wheelchairs and all that stuff. So that is a little snippet of my life.
I find it humorous to know like the code language of a mom that has a child with a physical disability, SMO, AFO. I know what those are. And for our listeners, AFO is an ankle foot orthotic, the plastic braces you'll see. And actually the SMO is same concept, but it only is for the foot. And it talks about like the actual, it's like, there's words that describe it that I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Do you know what they are? It's like the name of the part of the foot that it stabilizes. And that part of anatomy is not in my brain. So that's why I can never remember it. But I know what they look like.
Yes.
Anyhow, let's see. Well, thank you. It's great to kind of hear about a quick snapshot. I don't know why, but when you said I became a special needs child, what's your thought on the term special needs mom?
It's something that I never even envisioned myself having that label. I mean, I don't think anybody ever does, having, the special needs label, or even, talking about like child loss, having that label, stuff like that. In the beginning, it was definitely a really tough transition, kind of like accepting that this is like the reality and we don't really know what's going to happen down the road. I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen, but just in terms of, when you're pregnant, you envision your kid like walking out one, eating with, no difficulties, going to a regular school, just doing all like the typical type of things. So that was kind of really hard to adjust. But over time and with therapy and medication and just having the time to like accept, and now that we actually do have a diagnosis, it's a lot easier than I feel where I definitely was in the beginning of all this.
What is her diagnosis? Just so people kind of know about kind of the specifics of what you are parenting?
So she has what's called Chung-Jansen syndrome. It's pretty rare. I think there's like maybe like 50 or 60 cases reported worldwide. And it was just discovered, I think it was in 2019. So it's still pretty new. So hopefully, well, I don't hope anybody ever gets it, but when it becomes more known, hopefully we'll know down the road kind of like what we're looking at for her future. But there's just like a lot of variables that come with it. So
yeah, it sounds like it being that uncommon. What groups of special needs diagnoses, if you will, do you most identify with as you kind of watch other people in the community and compare them to kind of what you're experiencing and how you're supporting her?
So I am in a couple of the like Facebook groups, like there's 2 of the Chung-Jansen support groups. I'm in the hypotonia awareness support group, which hypotonia is low tone. And I'm in just like 1 or 2 of like the basic, like special needs in general parent. I honestly don't really use those groups though as much as I do on Instagram. I find it's kind of a lot easier to not compare your child and to not get, I guess, like upset when you see like other parents posting like, my 8-month-old is only starting to like cruise on furniture and I'm wondering if I need to get them orthotics. And I'm just like, it's just, yeah, comparing your child, I feel like no matter how hard you try, it's just like a natural thing. You'll always do it.
Yeah, we're constantly as social creatures looking at what's happening around us and trying to kind of figure out if like things are as they should be. Is my child as they should be? Of course, should in quotation marks. People can't see that. But also, are you as you should be? All the as shoulds. It's just the way that we as a community have, we figure out if we're falling in line. And so, yes, those groups can be kind of confronting. And the reason I ask that question is because like my son has so many different conditions that I find, and I know nobody that has exactly his same setup. There was one time actually at the beach where I was watching a little boy play and I thought, oh my gosh, like he looks just like my son physically, where they carry a lot of weight in their midsection. And we ended up getting to talking to this family, and it turns out he has some of the conditions that my son has. They were derived from a much different cause. However, it was just so interesting having been able to like spot it out there on the beach. Yeah. And to identify with another mom that actually really got a huge portion of his particular disability. And I guess I've always actually had maybe a little bit of, I don't know, envy feels like a little bit of a strong word, but for groups that have a clear diagnosis like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. And I know like intellectually that by no means makes the kids like, oh, well, like it doesn't necessarily make it better, but it I guess that's the temptation to think like, oh, it'd be so nice to be able to say, oh, my child has this. And people immediately understand, oh, I understand what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't even understand what we're dealing with. So it's hard to kind of have people, I guess my desire is to have people kind of have a snapshot of what's going on behind the scenes. Cause actually my son doesn't present like a lot of his disabilities are invisible. So, or not apparently visible.
Yeah, you wouldn't look at him and think like, oh, something's off. Because I get this.
Well, I was, and also, but I'm because he's blind in one eye and his vision in the other eye is okay. And even I forget this. I was advocating for him to get large print reading material at school, and I was like, I don't know, like it's even as his parent, I'm like, wow, like I wonder what people actually do think of him when they meet him, because he's so much more than meets the eye.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. It's the same thing like with Eleanor. I get told all the time, like, oh, but she looks so, and I hate even saying it, but she looks so normal. And it's not until like, if I'm just like carrying her, it's not until I have to like set her on the ground and they see her like scooting around and like, I can just see like, why is she not walking? Like she's 2. That should be something she'd accomplished like a year ago. So yeah, I definitely get that as well.
What is it like for you in those moments where you observe people observing her? Like what comes up for you in those moments?
I feel like before we got her diagnosis and we really had no clue why she was not crawling or pulling herself up to stand or any of that. I mean, granted, she was younger, but we just got her diagnosis in July of last summer. So it's still fairly recent. But before having any answers, I just almost felt like embarrassed because I did not have an answer and I did not know why she wasn't doing these things. But now that we have a name to put to it, I kind of treat that as like a way on how to educate people on it and bring awareness to this super rare syndrome. I just kind of look at it as like a learning opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I asked that question because I know for myself, when I see people like what I think is maybe making judgments about my son, it brings up a lot of emotion for me and usually very unpleasant emotions. We haven't been out as much in the last year because of course the COVID, but I I know with him also he moved up to junior high this year in California, so it's like middle school. He's in 6th grade. And I know that when my older son was going to middle school, I was like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. He's going to be great. But what it brought up for me with Levi going to school, I was just terrified, honestly, for like all the different
Yeah.
expectations that people have socially, whether it's peer relationships or even parents, because we go to a school that's pretty small community. And actually a lot of people know and love him. So I can look at this and be like, okay, you're okay. But still, as a mom,
Yeah.
I think our desire is to protect our children. And if it means protecting them from being judged by other people, I mean, it's one of my natural desires. And so I have to really actively let go of that because I actually, unfortunately, because I have tried, cannot control how other people think.
Yeah, it's it's a tough one. And I'm sure once Eleanor gets older, because with her syndrome, it does come with intellectual disabilities like learning difficulties, but she's honestly just too young right now. We have no clue if it's really going to affect her like it has some other kids. So yeah, it's tough to let go.
Yeah. And I think other guests have shared just like the evolving grief and joy of like as your child progresses at their own weight, it
Right.
also presents us with grief of what we thought was going to be. Like you talked about like earlier, you
Yeah.
never expected this. None of us really expected this, but that we all had a vision of what it was going to be like what we envisioned our family like. And I think one of the things that I know that I always envisioned is that we do like big camping adventures and we go backpacking out in the backwoods as a family. And it would like that's one of the visions I had that's not going to be my reality as a family unit. Can you think of anything that you had envisioned when you had before you were a special needs mom that you realized may not be part of your future?
Absolutely. So our oldest daughter is 6. So let's see, she was a little older than 4 by the time Eleanor was born. So obviously when you have siblings, you envision them, playing together, running around, just doing all those types of things. And then when Eleanor was like 7 months, that's when I started to notice some of the delays. And then that's just like when everything started. But I can honestly say now, and like I said, I think it's because I've had time to just kind of like almost like process everything and accept everything. Like I really would not change anything between Eleanor and Viv. I mean, nobody wishes that their kid, has difficulties, but Eleanor has taught Viv so many things. Like she has become almost like apparent to her without me even like asking. Like she helps her, like brush her teeth, and she'll like lift her up on the sink and she'll show her how to like spit. And it's just like, it's the cutest, like most heartwarming thing, because before Eleanor started to get all of her delays and all that, like, it was just like the typical sibling relationship, like, oh, she's so cute. Okay, bye. I'm going to go do whatever. And now it's completely different. She always wants to help her, and she like cheers her on if she's like pulling herself up to stand, and she notices like all these little milestones that I feel like a lot of kids just completely take for granted and don't even like realize. So it's just, I don't really think of like what should have been anymore. And it could be the medication I'm on that helps, but I'll take it because I kind of just don't really dwell so much on it. And I'm just kind of looking forward, I guess.
That is awesome. You're making me laugh. And I do think actually, as I talk to you and kind of hear your story, that your ability to have accepted what is in such a short amount of time, because really, I mean, she's only 2,
Right.
is really actually very profound. And I just really want to acknowledge you for the work that you've obviously, it's not just by accident. It just doesn't just magically happen. So amazing work. And I mean, you touched on medication. So it sounds like from a mental health standpoint, you've gotten yourself some support. Is that true?
Yes. With Viv, I never suffered from any like postpartum. And when Eleanor was a couple months old, that's when my friends kind of like nudged me a little bit and said like, hey, I think this is probably like postpartum, because I wasn't sad or anything. I was just so overwhelmed with having 2 kids now and thinking like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And this was before no clue about Eleanor's needs that were going to take place. And medication is a good thing, definitely, and therapy.
Yes.
I'm very open about that.
And I love that, because I think for so many years there's been a lot of stigma around both the things. And I know even myself a couple of years ago I was exploring medication, and I realized I had so many judgments about it actually.
Right.
And so I think by us talking about it and sharing about it and normalizing it and sharing the value of therapy, not as a show of weakness, but actually a show of strength and willingness to kind of care for yourself. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm very open about that on our YouTube channel and Eleanor's Instagram page, just because I do want to break the stigma. Like, it's okay to talk about. Everybody has struggles. You don't have to keep it hidden. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I feel like we're all on the Hot Mess Express.
Hot Mess Express. I like that. What would you say to anybody that's asking themselves if they would benefit from therapy?
It can definitely be a little intimidating telling a complete stranger your issues or problems or whatever. But to me, it was really nice having that third party to kind of just talk and vent to and bounce ideas off of. And I feel like that was almost like the missing piece I needed when it came to taking care of my mental health. I just feel like you have nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, it's, you may have like friends to talk to and all that, but I feel like it's great to have like an unbiased opinion and someone to just do that with.
Yeah, I think because our culture, typically, we're really not that great at listeners often. And so even if you are with a close friend, even if they're a wonderful friend, they have their like things they want to just vent on too, right? So it's like, we're all just humans. And so having somebody just to literally know that this conversation is 100% about you and that's okay.
Right.
It feels amazing. And I know that that's, what I experience is I have a coach, which is different than therapy, but has similar impacts and similar opportunities to explore certain parts of relationships. And I know my clients all feel the same way. Like I love it when clients don't even ask me like how I'm doing. They just get right into it. I'm like, I love it. Like they're here showing up and getting what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's nice to not have to ask like, so how are things in your life? How, what
Yeah.
happened with this? And it's just, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my friends and I love when they come and talk to me about things, but
It's just a
that's
different relationship.
why it's nice
Yeah,
having a therapist there, because you can just work
totally.
an hour and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you talked about friends, and I imagine having an older daughter, you had a friend group, maybe you had play dates and that kind of thing, but you kind of had a thing going. And now you have a different thing going. So I'm just curious to hear, how has that been for you transitioning? And maybe your daughter's not old enough, but I know for me, having a son with a physical disability has definitely felt like it separated us from the pack in a lot of ways. So I guess, what's your experience so far?
So right now, I mean, we just have a few close friends that like we will see in person. Obviously, we don't
Yeah.
really do the whole, big play date type thing. Um, so Viv's friends are all, I guess, Eleanor's friends. And it's honestly, it's great to see, because I feel like they get a little like snippet of what like Viv goes through. Like they are equally excited when Eleanor like stands up, or she's doing a new task, or she's able to eat a new type of food. I feel like there's not really a difference right now. But I know like once they get a little bit older, it probably will change a little bit. Viv's starting to get um, almost like a little bit jealous sometimes when her friend comes over and she puts all of her focus on like Eleanor. And I mean, I feel like that's just second nature, regardless if she had special needs,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping Eleanor will be able to make her own friends once she's able to start up her special needs school again, but that's not going to be until she's 3. So it is what it is, I guess.
And you're home with your girls, right? You're not working outside of the home.
Correct.
Was
Yeah.
that always going to be your choice, or did having the children that you have impact that?
It was not a choice. When Viv was born, she was actually premature. Long story short, I ended up staying home with her just because that's just what made sense financially. And then it just kind of went from there. And I actually did go back to work a little bit after Eleanor was born, but then all of her special needs started to come to light, and it just made it too difficult because I had to take her to appointments, and then she had a feeding tube and nobody could really watch her with a feeding tube. So yeah, it's where I am now.
Well, I can relate on having it hard to find people that are capable and willing to watch your child when they have special needs. We don't have a feeding tube or anything like that, but we have a lot of behavioral issues. So you can't just be like, all right, good luck, see you later. It's just a different experience. And fortunately, we do have amazing people in our life that help in that area. So obviously, there's two impacts, or I mean, there's more than two, but two I see immediately that I'm curious about. One, there's the financial impact of not working anymore. And I don't know if that was one part of your drive to work. And then, but also there's the impact of you not having that part of your life, or the career part. And I don't know if that was important to you, but just, I guess, speak to me, speak to us about just where are you with that and accepting that, and what do you maybe miss or long for, or are you totally happy to be home?
I am very grateful that I do have the opportunity to be with them. I was actually just thinking the other day, like, oh, man, when Eleanor starts school when she's 3, like that will give me like a short window, like maybe I can get out and find like a part-time job just to have just even the adult interaction would be nice. But it's just hard because I don't know like what kind of challenges that she's going to have even a year from now. yeah, I mean, this is just kind of been my life for 6 years, just staying home with them and, working. I was working, 20 some hours a week before Eleanor was born. And it, it was nice to have that time where I just didn't have to parent essentially. But I know like one day I will be able to get back into it, but I'm not sure when, just because of, her therapy and all that stuff. I'm not sure when it would be realistic to get back into it. So,
But it sounds like you're at a fairly high level of okayness. I don't know how to say it. It's okay with you that you're not
yeah,
really.
the other thing that I did find was like a good outlet was actually starting the YouTube channel, just because there was a point in time like where I was like, I feel like I'm not contributing, like I've lost my identity. All I do is just take care of them and it's okay. But I just felt like I had kind of like nothing for myself. And that's why I feel like starting that YouTube channel has kind of benefited me in all ways, just because I have that outlet and I'm able to share awareness and everything that comes with it. So there's that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to hear a little bit more about this. So, because you said, so you started a YouTube channel and I checked it out just quickly before we got on the call. And essentially, you're just providing a lot of insight and kind of like behind the scenes of your life
Right.
from what I saw.
Mhm.
And I think it's really interesting how the way you're talking about it is like how this benefits you. Like that basically you giving away and spending all your time like helping other moms is benefiting you. And
Yeah.
I love it. And I want to just hear a little bit more about that. Like, how does that work for you? And I think it's common. I see a lot of moms in this community doing the same thing. I'm obviously doing it too.
Right.
And so, what's your insight on this?
I actually have a list of videos that I'm going to make, and um, the topics of those videos are things that I wish I knew when our special needs journey started. So, like for instance, one of the videos I'm going to make is all about like hypotonia, like low muscle tone, what to expect, what types of equipment may you need if your kid does have low tone. And the other thing is what to also expect if your kid has low tone and they're not really hitting any milestones. Like, for instance, we went to a pediatrician. He put a referral in for us to be seen by a neurologist. And I had no idea what to expect. And it would have been nice to know, like, okay, well, you should expect to get an MRI and she'll need to be sedated and it'll take this long to get the results. And if nothing comes up from this, then they're going to do this. So it's just, it would have been so nice to kind of be a little bit more prepared when we were going through all this. So that's why I essentially made the channel, to just kind of give other parents that are going through similar things kind of like a comfort, knowing that you're not in this alone and it's tough, but just keep pushing. If you feel like something may be off, you need to go with that. If you don't agree with a doctor's opinion, get a second opinion. It's just to try to bring like some normalcy into all of this that we were not expecting. That's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, well, I hear also like you're trying to prevent some of the difficult feelings that you had along this experience, that you're trying to help people in a way that you didn't have. And I think it's a really beautiful testament because you're doing this, and then of course so many other people are doing this. It's an amazing testament to, I think, the beauty in humanity and our desire to help people from our hurt
Yeah.
and from what we didn't have, we want to give other people. And I think that is just like really touching me right now.
I mean, it's tough. Like, nobody signed up to have to think about, wheelchairs and genetic testing and blood draws and, all this stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of like a lot to carry. And especially not having a diagnosis, that's even tougher. So, just to kind of have that comfort, I feel like it definitely would have helped me. So, hopefully, it's helping other people.
I feel like what words are coming to my head is it's almost like so many of the moms we all feel alone or we feel separated from where we thought we would be or where we even might want to be. And it's almost like, I think what work you're doing, what work I'm doing is it's like saying, welcome back to the pack. Like, we're here, you're quote unquote normal, you belong, you don't have to feel separated. And I don't know, I think that's really powerful for, obviously it's powerful for you and I, since we're clearly acting to create that.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Nice work.
Well, thank you.
I find it interesting. So your Instagram is about your daughter. And I guess I was wondering, so how does your older daughter feel about having this focus, and maybe she doesn't know, be on her little sister? Because I know that in our family, so I have 4 kids. And so Levi is my second oldest. He has an older brother that's about 2 years older than him. And then he has a brother that's, well, yeah, I have 4 kids. I don't think their age matters right now, but I was like, I can't even remember them. So I just have to stop talking. I have 4 kids. I do know that there's 3 boys and 1 girl. Obviously, like, there's a lot of different treatment of different kids. Some of my kids are really confronted with things not being fair. And I have to just, in my head, I'm like, you're right. And actually I do audibly say that you're right. It's not fair. And I'm really sorry about that. But your world is not fair. And so we're going to just have to accept that as our reality. It's not helping yet, but I'll get back to you and let you know if it does help. But where was I going with this?
Does Viv ever feel?
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Out?
I don't know if I was going to get back there. So thank you for redirecting me. No. Yeah. So I guess, how is that for you? Like, how do you guys talk about that?
We do. And I also make it a point to make sure that she knows I'm not taking Eleanor to all of these appointments for fun. Like, there was a couple times where I did have to bring her to like the physical therapy appointments, and she would see that Eleanor would cry like the entire time. So I want her to know, like, hey, I'm not taking her to an amusement park. Like, I'm taking her to physical therapy. I'm taking her to, the neurologist or whatever. So she knows. And I also do make sure that I do spend that one-on-one time with her. And, her and I like to go to like the movie theaters together, or I'll have my husband, watch Eleanor, and her and I will go on like a date, just so that way she knows, like, I value her. She's definitely not less than. She's equally as important than Eleanor. And she does also have sleepovers like with her grandparents. Sometimes it'll just be like her. Other times Eleanor will join. There is, like, especially when it comes to like the YouTube channel or Instagram, in the beginning, Viv said that she doesn't like getting her picture taken. She doesn't like, when I like record a video of her. And now that's kind of like changed. Now she's like, hey, you should take my picture with Eleanor, or I want to be in the video too. And it's just, I mean, that's fine by me, but
that's really interesting.
I was respecting her wishes at first. And now she's just like, well, why don't you ever take pictures of me? And I'm like, Viv, you told me you don't like it when I take pictures of you, but that has changed now.
My kids have changed a little bit in that regard too. I think it's hilarious. So again, I have the 4 kids. Levi, who's my special needs child, he loves being up there. He just thinks it's the greatest, and that's his personality, and it works out great for me. Yeah. But my other 2 kids who are old enough to care or to be cognizant of it, they pretty much don't like being out there, and they don't like Vivian, don't love having their picture taken. However, there are certain things, the very specific times where they actually request, hey mom, can we put this on Instagram? And like, they think it's kind of fun. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, of course, sure. And specifically my oldest son, he got a unicycle for Christmas, and he's like, mom, can we make a Instagram reel about this? And I was like, yeah. And it's just a way that we play together, because I happen to think making reels is like super fun. It's very entertaining to me. And so we've been doing that a little bit, but I made one for his electric skateboard, and it was like, I had so much fun with it. And it's just kind of a fun thing that we do together. Anyhow, I think it's interesting how it's like one of those things where it kind of scares me a little bit, because I'm like, okay, well, why do they like want to brag about, I don't know, like it's just like it's the weird thing about social media where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if it's good or not, but we're going to go with it because they're happy and they're excited to share with people. But I do also have concerns about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So we'll just go with it. We're just going to tuck that in and be like, oh, okay, we'll just cross our fingers on that one. I do a lot of crossing fingers. No, I don't. I don't. But
That's all the time.
yes. Yeah. I often think to myself when in parenting moments, thinking when that one child is like, oh my gosh, this is not fair, and kind of just in it. And I know that I can't help him or rescue him from that feeling as much as I want to. And I just think, these are the moments that they will get to work through as adults, and they will, like, I can't rescue them from the suffering, even though, man, I want to.
And I feel like they'll probably look back on their childhood and think like, wow, even if they become a parent, like I could see them thinking like, wow, my mom, I don't know how she got through all that, because that's what I think about my mom, how when she moved to a completely different state, didn't have any help. And I'm like, I don't know how you did that. And I'm hoping that one day Viv will think like, wow, like, I think you did a great job, making sure that you know how much you love us, care for us, feel special, all that stuff. At least I hope. So.
Likewise, and I know I can look my parents the same way. Like my brother had a congenital heart defect, and so my parents went through like 2 heart surgeries with him, and I look at them, I'm like, wow, like that's pretty bold, guys, especially since it was back in
Oh yeah.
1980. Do you look back at yourself now, like 2 years ago, and say, wow, I don't know how you got through that? Or maybe not 2 years ago, maybe since the diagnosis was like from when you kind of processed it.
I even just think like right when everything started, like if I would have told my past self, like, hey, just letting you know, you're going to need to start thinking about wheelchairs, and you'll need to start thinking about possible like intellectual disabilities. And I would have said like, you're out of your mind. How, like, I can't think about that. I would be like, how would I function? I can't think of how I'm going to be in a wheelchair. But now that it's here and I'm medicated and all therapy, and we do have the diagnosis, it is what it is. Like, that's just what she needs.
Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that. And I think this is actually something that I want all special needs moms to realize, is that we don't give ourselves enough credit. And I think this is actually all moms and all people. But I know for myself, when I was first going through like the moments of learning about my son's initial diagnosis, it was very much, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And one foot after another, I did it. And I think, how many other things in our life do we relate to in the same way? And if we related to ourselves as beings that could do it, that could feel these feelings that we had to feel in order to accept the reality that we have, I just think this is what drives me. This is what, I mean, I kind of like obsess about learning about this stuff, but it's definitely what I'm like, wow, like it blows my mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just having, family members, especially like Eleanor's grandparents, she has 3 sets of grandparents. So she has my father-in-law, and then my mom and my stepdad, and my dad and my stepmom. I feel like they have had more so of a tough time accepting. Well, obviously they accept it because, they love her and everything, but just kind of seeing like the big picture down the road and kind of accepting like, she's 2, she's not walking yet. I don't see her walking independently until maybe she's 3, and just seeing like she may need a wheelchair. In my head, I feel like she does. I actually told my dad that the other day, like, yeah, I'm going to talk to her physical therapist on Friday about wheelchairs and getting a lighter weight walker, because the one she has is just super heavy. And he's like, well, wait, like, no, she's doing so good. She'll be walking and it'll be fine. I'm like, well, hypotonia, low tone. I'm like, she's always going to have that. Like, just because she's going to be able to walk, it doesn't mean that she will be able to walk long distances or be able to, do steps as easily as others or climb up a hill. So it's nice to be prepared. So Yeah.
This one I know from actually personal experience because Levi has essentially hypotonia on his left side from a surgical stroke. And so I know what it's like to have a body that looks normal on the outside, but you don't know what it's like to be on the inside. And
Yeah.
it's hard to understand when everything looks so normal why it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And then also as a parent trying to figure out how do I push, like basically when do you get the chair? You know, like it's definitely um and as they continue growing and changing, like it's like constantly having to redecide how to support them.
Right.
And it's a delicate balance.
Right. And I remember I was talking to my husband about it. It was the other night, like, hey, I was just thinking Eleanor's going to be outgrowing her stroller, obviously, some point in the future. Like, I think maybe we should start discussing the possibilities of a wheelchair. And it's just like his whole mood just like completely changed. And it looked like a wash of like devastation, like kind of like, I don't want to think about that. But he agrees because he had a hard time at first accepting and dealing with everything, but now he's definitely a lot better than where he was, that's for sure. But it's tough.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And when you look at kind of your own, like where you're at now with what you know now, if you're open to share,
Yeah.
what is it that you find that you're most afraid of, or what fear comes to you the most about your future as your daughter's mom?
Biggest thing would probably just be like the bullying in school. But honestly, like you would have that if your kid was a special needs kid or not. Like Viv could get bullied. I got bullied. Like I feel like everybody probably got bullied in school. I did when I was younger a lot. But that's just a big thing because I can't be there to like protect her and help her. But I don't know. I kind of have that fear with like both of my kids, especially with how social media is. When I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones or the internet, which that makes me sound so old. But we didn't have the internet when I was.
Well, you look a lot younger than I am, so don't say that. Just kidding.
Sorry. Well, I'm going to be
No,
30.
that's okay.
So
33? Did you say 33?
yeah, I'm
Oh,
going to be
you're
30.
like a baby. Oh, no, just kidding. I'm 40.
Well, I'm not close to the camera, so you can't see all the
No,
wrinkles.
I could tell. I could tell you are not 40. I
Yeah.
mean, I love being 40, but the other day I was like, oh, huh. Okay. Yeah, we're doing okay. We're 40. All right. Got that.
But I feel like, social media and kids, like, just that scares the absolute crap out of me. Like, just when the internet just became like a thing, like I vaguely remember like going into chat rooms, talking with strangers, and then, the whole see, it wasn't Facebook, it was MySpace. Like just ugh.
Yeah, I remember being down. My dad had an office in our garage, and there was AOL chat rooms at that
Oh
time. And
yeah.
I mean, those actually were so much fun. And fortunately, at that point, it was, I don't think the horrible things that are happening now were. Maybe they were, because it is actually quite terrifying knowing how completely naive we all were about it.
For sure.
But I would tell you, like in high school, that was so amazing, like from a high schooler brain. And so I see the allure now for kids, but I also see, oh my gosh, that is so terrifying.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I can relate to the fear of bullying. And I know my kids actually struggle with that too, for on both sides of it. Actually, they are afraid that Levi is going to get bullied and they want to protect him, but they also struggle with being embarrassed by him because of all the behavioral things he has. And I get it. Like, because and it's heartbreaking as a mom, but then it's very understandable. So it's just one of those things where yet another opportunity to not resist our feelings, but actually fully let them move through and just accept them for what they are.
Exactly.
Well, this was amazing to get to know you and your journey. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything that you would like to share as we wrap up?
The biggest takeaway is just the huge emphasis on taking care of your mental health. That's the biggest thing, to not be embarrassed. If you're struggling, reach out to somebody. You can even reach out to me if you want. Like, I don't mind. But just if you can't take care of yourself, then how are you going to expect to take care of other people, especially your kids? So
great summary. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I appreciate you offering to be a resource to people, because I think as we hear everybody's stories, there's going to be parts that we just totally connect with. And I think that's by design. And that's why I want to have the different mothers' stories on here, because I think that is that unifying, connecting piece. I think connection is a very powerful thing. So thank you for that willingness. And your contact information will be on the show notes. So anybody that does want to reach out to you will be able to contact you easily that way. And I just, again, want to acknowledge you for your openness and your willingness to share, and your being a creator and putting so much content out there that is inspiring and encouraging, uplifting and helpful. It's truly beautiful. And thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.